Thanks for joining me. This is Danny and welcome back to my Modded 1.10.2 series. Today we are going to be kind of picking up where we left off in the last episode where we did autocrafting for the Atomic Reconstructor from Actual Editions, and today we are going to move on to the Empower, which is possibly going to be a bit more complicated. We could autocraft this thing using just Ender.io conduits and filters and that sort of thing, but we could end up running into some problems if certain things happen that we aren't expecting, like if we try to craft multiple things at a time. So we are going to be managing that with RF Tools controls. Here's what we're going to need. Obviously a crafter, a cable, or some cables, a RF Tools control processor, because we're doing this with RF Tools controls. We're going to need 4 nodes for the setup that I'm going to do. A program card, CPU, RAM, and network card. And then of course the Empower and the 4 display stands and some kind of storage. I'm going to use a wooden storage crate just because we can set that on the ground and it will take up the whole block space, so it'll look a little nicer that way. But I'm gonna put that there. I'm gonna put the programmer, or not the programmer, but the processor. We'll also need a programmer, but we have one over there. I'm just gonna use that. I'm putting the processor right in the middle, and then I'm putting the 4 nodes right under the 4, right under where the 4 display stands are going to go. So the display stands, and then the Empower right in the middle, which does not need power. I'm going to connect those, so this thing should be starting to get power. Yes, there. I decided to put a laser relay up here, just to make it look interesting. So we have our import chest here that the crafter is putting into, and then we have our output chest here that our importer is pulling from. The processor is going to be looking to the south to get items, and it's going to be looking to the north to drop off items. I have the network set up. All the nodes are in the empowering channel, or on the empowering channel, and then I just called them stand N, stand S, north, south, east, and west. So now we can set up the processor. Okay, I guess we can't shift click. So there's our CPU core. One basic CPU core will be enough. It does 1 operation per tick, which is more than enough for our setup. 1 RAM chip is going to give us 8 memory slots, which is more than enough, and then our network card is going to give us a range of 17 by 17 by 17, and it's wireless, so we don't have to have any cables or anything like that connecting these 4 things. Then we go in here and we say net setup, and then the name of our network, and we're calling it empowering. So we found 4 nodes. Cool. Unfortunately, in order for this to work the way I want it to, we're going to have to make one of everything. So just like the old days of machine autocrafting. I crafted a crafting station from RF Tools controls and some crafting cards. We're actually not going to be using the crafting system with RF Tools controls per se. We're kind of going to be using just one aspect of it, and that is the ability to be able to look for ingredients that are specified by a particular crafting card. So we can set up our crafting cards for each of the recipes that we want to set up. But Refined Storage is going to be handling the auto crafting of it. It's going to be checking the system for the items. It's going to be sending them out to the chest out there. And then all RF Tools is going to be doing is just checking to see, do we have the items that we need? And if we do, then it's going to trigger the process. The beauty of this system is that it is then only going to do 1 recipe at a time. So if this chest gets like completely overloaded with a whole bunch of different recipes, the RF Tools controls crafting system will be able to just grab the ingredients it needs for each recipe, check which recipes it can make, and then make those recipes. What I'm doing is I'm setting up all the recipes so that the first item is going to be the item that goes into the Empower in the center, and then the remaining 4 items are going to come afterwards. So because the order that you put them in here is going to determine the order that it places them within the processor. We'll see that in a little bit. So to set up this crafting station, we just set it down within the same range as the node, so anywhere within a 17 by 17 by 17 area. And then when we do our net setup, again, empowering, found 4 nodes, found 1 crafting station. So it found this crafting station. Here's the thing. we're not using this crafting station. It's going to be completely unused. The only reason we have it is because the opcode that we're going to be using to grab the ingredients is going to be looking for it. And if it's not there, it's going to give us an error. Okay, theoretically, I have our first recipe set up. We've got, the output is an empowered Restonia crystal block. The input is a Restonia crystal block, red dye, another brick, redstone, and brick. And what should happen is our crafter should drop all those items into this chest, at which point this thing, which is checking every 3 seconds to see if all of the ingredients for any crafting recipe from a card that exists in this crate. Right now we have this crafting card in here for the empowered Restonia crystal block that we looked at earlier. So it's going to check to see if all these ingredients exist in the chest. If they don't, it doesn't do anything. It just waits. And checks again 5 seconds later, or 3 seconds later, whatever it is. If it finds all those ingredients, it's going to pull them into the processor, then it's going to put them in their proper places, and it's going to wait until that item is here on the empower, and once it's there, it's going to pull it and put it in this chest. So let's see if this works. So it's actually going to first craft a Restonia crystal block before it crafts the empowered one. So it looks like we have everything we need. So we should see some Restonia crystals appearing. If we were in the house, we'd hear the bzzzt. So there they are, and then we'll see a block. And now we should see those ingredients having been put in this chest. Dun, 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 dun. Here's the moment of truth, which is failing to deliver. Okay, I know what I did wrong. When we put our card in here, and we have to set up this slot to have access to 5 inventory slots. Okay. Oh, oh. It's doing it. It's doing it. Nice. Oh, this is so awesome. This is very exciting. I'm very excited about this. Maybe a little too excited. So when it's done, so right now the program should be just waiting. And when it's done, when it sees the item that it's expecting, it's going to put it in here, but no. Okay. What's going on? Missing crafting ticket. Huh? Let's try this again. I also set up the recipe for empowered payless. Actually, let's look at what we have all together. Okay, so it's going to craft a payless crystal block first. So actually, first it's going to do some payless crystals. So if we were in the house right now, we would hear it going bzzz, and now they're being piled in. Once we get 9, it's going to craft a block. And then, oh, look at that. It's working. Nice. We've got our 3 prismarine. We've got our block in the middle. And hopefully, if I've done everything correctly, right now it's just looping. The program is looping, and it's checking the empowerer to see if it has an empowered payless crystal block. Oh, nice. It worked. It worked. Oh, that's awesome. All right, let's take a look at this program. It's actually not that bad. Compared to some of the ones I've done in the past, it's actually fairly simple. If you're not an adept programmer, you still may be able to understand this program. So this is it. Really, it's just basically one line, and then there's going to be a bunch of repeated lines for each crafting recipe that we're going to do. Every 3 seconds, so we just have an event on repeat. That's every 60 ticks. It's going to execute this program, and it's set to only one simultaneous run, so that it will only ever run once. So like, while that was going on, while it was crafting that and it was waiting, it would no longer trigger this event. So it just sits there and waits until that's done. So even if this chest is full of a bunch of stuff, it's not going to grab anything until this is done. So, okay. So the first thing it does is it just checks that chest, and it says how many items are in there. and then it does a greater than loop, or a greater than thing, and it says if the last result, which is the number of items in that chest, is greater than 5, then we continue. If it's not, then we just die. So it's not even going to bother checking anything else. So this is basically for just to reduce lag, so that all it's doing is it's saying, hey, how many items are in this chest? Oh, there aren't any. So then it just moves on and waits. I actually put these cobblestone in here just to test that, so I'll take those out now. But so it's just going to be like, okay. And then 5 seconds later, it's going to check again. Hey, is there anything in there yet? Nope. Okay. And then when it sees that, oh, there are at least 5 items in this chest, then we move on to do our get ingredients smart. So this is actually a part of the RF Tools Controls crafting system. Even though we're not technically using the crafting system, we are using this one opcode from the crafting system, which basically, if we look at the thing at the description, it checks if all the ingredients are available in another inventory or storage system. If so, fetch them in the processor. Otherwise, try to request all missing items, return 0 on success, -1 on failure, and otherwise the number of items that are requested. So what we're doing then is we're checking the result, and we're saying if the result was 0, then we're going to go on. We're going to move on and do all the. We're going to grab the items and do everything else. If the result is anything but 0, we know that the items for this particular recipe do not exist in that chest. So we're going to check the next recipe. But for this recipe, or for this get ingredients smart, these are what we're specifying. So first of all, the inventory that we're looking at is the south side of the processor. So the node name is empty because we're using the processor. The processor is under the empowerer, so it's looking south. It's checking this inventory, and it's saying, are there items in this inventory to match a crafting card that's in the inventory to the east. So we have to have an inventory that stores all of our crafting cards. So right now I've got 2 crafting cards in here, Empowered Restonia and a Powered Payless. Blocks. I'm doing blocks. I'm doing all blocks just because it ends up being cheaper that way, because 3 prismarine shards and a cyan dye is the same price if you do a block or if you do a single piece. So we're always going to do blocks here. So it's checking that inventory for crafting cards, and in particular we have to specify which crafting card, and in this case we're specifying Empowered Restonia Crystal Block. So we actually have to have the Restonia Crystal Block in our inventory, click to drop the item. So we specify the item that we're looking for, and then we're telling it what slots to put them in. So all of our recipes are going to have exactly 5 items. So we're going to take slots 0 through 4, and we're going to, if it does find the items that it needs for this recipe, it's going to put them in our processor, starting with slot 0 all the way to slot 4. And then we're telling it what the destination inventory is, and that's north. This is the destination inventory. It's the north chest. It's actually not using that information in this case, but you have to specify it. So if we were actually using RF Tools crafting system, that it would use that information for something. But since we're only using this opcode to get the ingredient, to check that the ingredients are there, and then to get them if they're there. Otherwise, this would be like many opcodes to check for each ingredient. So it turns out this opcode kind of shortcuts things for us and makes this program much simpler. So it checks this inventory to see if we have all the ingredients we need. If we do, then it returns 0, and then we move on here, and we call the function called push. That's this function here. And what's awesome about this is it doesn't care. The push function doesn't care which recipe we're doing. All it's doing is it's pushing one item into each thing, and the first item that it pushes, it's pushing into, from slot 0, it's pushing it into the empowerer. So the empowerer is right above the processor. So that's the upper inventory, and the node name is blank because it's not a node, it's the processor. And then it pushes all the other ones into the 4 nodes. the upper side. So remember, we set up the nodes down there just beneath the node. Each of the display stands have a node underneath it, and it's stand north, south, east, and west. So it's going to push one item into each one of those things. So when we set up these recipes, that's why I said earlier, it's important that the first item is the block that goes into the empowerer. So for this program to work, the first one has to be the one that goes into the empowerer. And then the other 4 ingredients come after. It doesn't matter what order they are, because it doesn't matter which display stand we put them in. For recipes that have multiple of the same ingredient, we have to spread them out. So it has to be 1 prismarine shard in each of the 3 spaces, because it's going to grab these items and it's going to put them inside our processor in the exact order right here. Slots 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's going to put them in the exact same order that they are in here. And that's important because if it's going to grab from each slot and put 1 item in each display stand from each slot. So if we ended up having just 3 prismarine shards in 1 stack, it's not going to work. After it pushes all the items, it goes back up here, because the call function, what it does is it basically sends a signal. It's the same as the send signal opcode, except that it waits. So it sends a signal, and then it waits here until that's done. As soon as this is done, it springs back up here, and then we evaluate item. And the evaluate item opcode is kind of nice. All it does is it says, give me an item, and I'll tell you what it is. So again, here we have to take our empowered redstone crystal, or whatever it is that we're crafting in this case, drop it there, or click on it with that. And then we're setting the variable 0 to that value. So this variable is going to have it's going to hold whatever item. In fact, if we look in there now, I didn't clear the variable, so if we look in here now, we'll see that variable 0 has the value empowered payless crystal block, because that's the last thing we crafted. So the reason I'm doing that is because then we're calling another function, and this time it's the grab function, which is this. It's just this small little thing here. And what this is doing is it's checking, actually it's got another line, it's checking the inventory in the empowerer. So that's the upper inventory above the processor. And it's checking for the item specified in variable 0. So up here we set variable 0 to empowered Restonia crystal block. And the reason we're using a variable here is because then we can reuse the same code for every one of our crafting recipes. So we don't have to repeat this entire code, this entire block of code. All we have to do is just set the variable and then call the opcode. It's saying how many empowered payless crystal blocks, or whatever, how many of the inventory item that we want is in here. If it's greater than 0, then we move on. If it's not, then we wait 60 ticks, so we wait 3 seconds, and then we just check again. So we're using a wire here, which basically does nothing, but it allows us to loop back. So we're doing a loop here. Every 3 seconds we're checking, hey, is it there yet? Is it there yet? Is it there yet? And then once it is, then we just fetch it. We say, hey, give me the item, fetch the item above the processor, and put it in slot number 0, and then push the item that's in slot number 0 to our inventory to the north. So that's this inventory. That is the one that has the importer on it. So that's how it ends up back in our refined storage system. And that's it. That's the whole program. And then all you have to do to add another item is copy this block of code and paste it down here. And then we just go in here and we change this item with the new item that we're doing, and we change this variable to the new item. We have to have the recipe defined in 2 places. We have to have it defined in one of these guys, one of the crafting cards, and then of course we also have to tell refined storage what the recipe is. It's a little extra work than if you just had a chest with some Ender IO pipes or whatever with filters on it, but it's much more robust. I mean, this system, it's always going to be crafting one piece at a time. It doesn't matter how much crap you throw in this chest, it's always going to just grab one recipe at a time. It won't get the recipes mixed up. Let's just walk through the process of doing one. So we take our filter, we put our diamantine, we're doing diamantine now, so we put that up there in the first corner, and then these guys, now we have to separate these, because if we take this one requires 2 clay. If we do that, it's going to put 2 clay in one slot, and we don't want that. We want, whoops, we want to separate those, clay, and then clay block, and then the light blue dye. And of course it doesn't matter what order we put those in. I did this now before I crafted it, because once I craft it I won't have these items anymore. So now I'm going to make it. Because we haven't set up the recipe yet, it's not going to pull the item out. So it's only going to pull items out of the Empower if it's already started this process and it's waiting. So what's kind of nice about that is we can come over here and manually do stuff. We can manually use this thing, and as long as we're using it, the program is not going to start running, so we don't have to worry about it stealing our stuff. Okay, so there's our Empowered Diamantine. Gonna put that in the result, and then we just throw this in this chest. And then we come over here, and that one I already copied and pasted last time. We just go into here, and we say we're making Empowered Diamantine, and then we set this eval item to evaluate Empowered Diamantine. And then we save our program. Put it in there. There's our pattern. Put the pattern in there. And now we can craft Empowered Diamantine. Nice. I've got 6 patterns in here, one for each of the empowered crystals. The other thing we can make is empowered canola seeds, but I've got a whole setup over there for that, and we wouldn't really have any reason to autocraft those at this point. And then our hooray! And then this guy has all 6 has a line for each of the 6. Here's the Restonia. And they're basically all copied and pasted. They're exactly the same. The only difference, like I said, is this variable and this. So that's what it looks like in its complete form. And then, of course, if we look down here in our crafter, we've got all 6 of them down here as well. So we can autocraft everything in Actual Editions now. There's nothing we can't autocraft in Actual Editions. Hooray! That's very exciting. I don't know why I didn't do this sooner, but whatever. We got it now. Before we go, let's pay a quick visit to the viewer shrine, because I do have a few more names in here and one more head. Hooray! We have another patron. It's Mr. Man number 1. He is a level 2 patron, so he gets his head out here. So shout out to Mr. Man, and of course shout out to Reese's. I don't know if I said that last time, but so we now have 3 patrons: iEnergy, Reese's, and Mr. Man number 1. I've also added another commenter, Kyle Severko, Basquiat. He's been playing on the server with us for a while, so he asked me the question, if he makes me laugh, does that count? And it does. I also have a few honorable mentions down here on this side. Number 1 is Crimer11. He is the one who set up our server that we are now hosting all of our worlds on. We went with a dedicated server, so we don't have to use a shared hosting service anymore. And he put a lot of time into that and got everything all set up for us and kind of showed me how to maintain it and stuff. So that, thank you very, very much, Crimer11. I'm also honorable mention Amuzet. He was one of the leaders in building the spawn on our first server, and he did some really awesome builds on that server, as I'm sure most of you may have already seen. The bridges, man, the bridges are so beautiful, and a few other things. At Nadnam, who you probably saw in a recent episode, had done the refined energistics setup for me. Yes, I did say refined energistics. You might want to check that out if you haven't already. And Arcus M, oh, it just says Arcus. It's Arcus M, who kind of showed me the ropes with mystical agriculture, also roguelike dungeons. And then I also wanted to kind of shout out to 2 modders that have been active on this channel, and like as far as commenting, and have also been quite helpful. Of course, Alpec has been playing with us on the servers, and he also just in general has been a very responsive modder. You know, whenever we ask for things, he always responds right away. And of course, anytime we play his mod, he always watches and comments. Oh, and of course, Alpec also made a mod for us. He made the Simple Protection mod for our servers, which does some really awesome stuff that no other mods were able to do for us, as far as protecting our public areas, but also allowing people to interact with things. So it was kind of a big deal for us. Raoul Wiedeberg, he is the Refined Storage author. He has been extremely responsive to the community and to us when we've had questions for him, and when we were having problems with our server, he was helping us troubleshoot it, even though it may not even have been Refined Storage that was causing the problem for us. But he was extremely helpful in troubleshooting and looking into things for us. Thank you so much, all you guys that I mentioned, and anybody else who's helped me out who I haven't mentioned yet, but I probably will at some point in the future. There, I prettied it up a little bit. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I know we did cover some kind of complicated stuff today, so of course, definitely feel free to ask any questions if you have any. I'll do my best to answer them, and maybe even other people will too. Of course, if you have any ideas, suggestions, or whatever too, you can share those as well. And of course, if you did enjoy this, don't forget to click the like button and to join me next time. Thanks for watching.